Be the change you want to see in the world, said Gandhi. Except it turns out he never said it. And of course, if you want change, doing this won't help. So what will? Hi, I'm Adi. Now, if you've been paying close attention, you'll know there's a climate crisis, that it's already killing people, increasing conflict and immigration, that governments aren't doing enough about it, oil companies are seeking to gloss over it, whilst we're getting perilously close to a point of no return. You'll know the tendency of the Murdoch-owned press to misreport this has caused a rift in the Murdoch family, and that successive UK governments have been in bed with Murdoch. You'll also note our habit of deforesting land increases the chances of pandemics, so unless we fix that too, we'll have another deadly virus to deal with before long. Knowing all that can send people down one of two routes. They either say, there's no point in doing anything because it won't make any difference, or they start recycling like they're possessed. Now you might say, well, at least the people in the second camp are doing something, and that's where we differ. Because recycling more, flying less, driving less, these are great if they make you feel better in the face of something that seems insurmountable. But it's important to realise that the overall difference they make is minuscule. Most people simply won't make these kind of sacrifices because they're too busy chasing careers, relationships, children, status or hobbies. It's not enough to just change what we do. We have to ensure that other people change what they do too, by getting the government to bring in gradual reforms for businesses and individuals alike. A nation making small changes will achieve far more than a few people making Herculean efforts. How do we get the government to do this? Well, we need to get stuck in. We know society works best when we do more than the minimum. That it's not enough to be non-racist, we have to be anti-racist. We have to politely call it out if we see it. It's not enough to not drink drive. If we're out on the town and a mate who we know drove in, has a few drinks and then makes to leave and drive home, what do? Watch them go and call the police? No. We talk them round, we put them in a cab. We police the situation ourselves. This quote illustrates this. One step can move a person can move a community, and one community can move the world. True. And far more Gandhian than the quote we started with. Which individual said this? Well, it was the marketing team at New Balance trainers. And that might seem less inspirational than a quote said by just one person, but people working together in groups is what got us out of the plains of Africa and into business suits. Therefore, I would highly recommend volunteering, however briefly, with an environmental protest group. It will probably mean leaving your comfort zone, far more than upping your recycling game will. But working with people is fun. It combats loneliness, helps you network, and who knows, might even get you laid. Now, if you've ever gotten laid by recycling, you have some serious skills. If group action really isn't something you're up for, I will list a few high-value individual actions at the end. So, what groups are there? Well, Friends of the Earth and Greenpeace are excellent choices. They both use petitions and other legal methods to oppose short-sighted developments which pose a threat to the climate, whilst also producing environmental reports. Greenpeace differ only in that they also use paid activists to do high-profile civil disobedience, some of which gets in the press and some not. They have both been holding governments and local authorities to account for decades now and are a force to be reckoned with. This year they were key to successful court cases against plans for a third runway at Heathrow and a coal mine in Northumberland. If you volunteer with these guys, it will be low-key, chilled-out stuff with very little to no chance of being arrested unless you really want to be. Extinction Rebellion are the new kids on the block, and unlike the other groups, they are decentralized, meaning that providing you comply with their core values, you can do pretty much what you want, and that's how we ended up with a small number of people on top of trains. That was against the wishes of the vast majority of the members, but those people went ahead with it anyway. The right-wing press have also been twisting events to suit their narrative that this group is a bunch of radical Marxists. Having spent some time at the protest last year, I can honestly say that nothing could be further from the truth. Getting involved with this group doesn't necessarily have to involve being arrested. But if you're worried about that aspect, perhaps you need a DBS check for your job, or if you don't have a job, then you might feel more comfortable with the other groups. Perhaps you think getting arrested isn't necessary, but when waving banners does nothing, you only have to look at history to see that being arrested for peaceful civil disobedience can be a useful tool. They've had success in raising the profile of the crisis and getting two of their core demands largely met, those being Parliament declaring a climate crisis and also setting up the Citizens' Assembly on how to react to the crisis. The report from that assembly was delivered this month, and I highly recommend taking a look at it. Whatever group that you get involved with, it's important to recognise that protests absolutely must be peaceful in word and action. It's the only way to protest if you want to retain moral integrity, and research has shown that it's far more effective than getting all aggro about it. If getting involved with the group doesn't lend itself to you, then here are some alternatives. If Trump wins on the 3rd of November, he will pull out of the Paris Agreement the following day, thereby making it exponentially more difficult for global emissions targets to be met. Vote From Home 2020 is a legitimate campaign group helping people in swing states to do just that, vote from home. Please check them out and make a donation to them. If you don't want to spend your hard-earned money, you could change your bank account to one that doesn't invest said money in fossil fuels, such as Nationwide or Triodos. It's easy to do, there's an automated system set up for it, and they'll transfer your money and direct debits to your new bank. If you have a pension, changing the scheme to a green one that doesn't invest in fossil fuels is highly advisable. There is far more oil in the ground than we can ever burn without setting off an ever-increasing cycle of warming, and you don't want your retirement funds resting on obsolete technology. Last of all, and least sexy, read the science. Don't take my word for it, and then write to your MP to pressure them to take action. Links to everything mentioned and how to join the groups are below. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please like and share. Cheers.